Welcome back to the Toledo Rockets podcast. I am your host, Brian Nowicki. And today I'm going to do an update on basketball and a huge game last night. The men's basketball team with an 84-74 victory at Akron, moving into a three-way tie for first place in the MAC with Akron and Kent State. This snapped Akron's 8-game winning streak and extended Toledo's winning streak to 8 games. The Rockets are now 18-6 overall, 9-2 in the MAC. Like I said, they are tied with Akron and Kent State at 9-2. Akron just beat Kent State a couple days ago in Akron. And that dropped Kent State to 2 losses. And then, Toledo's win over Akron last night has all 3 teams at 9-2 in the conference. So looking at Toledo in this game, Cedric Milner Jr. led the way with 20 points. Sophomore Dante Maddox Jr. had 19 points, including 15 points in the second half. Ray J. Dennis added 18 points, and JT Shumate added 14 points for the Rockets. So Toledo shot the ball really well. They were 50% from the field for the game, 50% from the three-point line as well, and 82% from the free throw line. The other key thing here was rebounding. In some of the games that Toledo has lost this year, they've struggled a bit with rebounding. And in this game, they out-rebounded Akron 33-32. Very close, but they did out-rebound them. In games that Toledo has out-rebounded the other team this year, they are 12-0. So the rebounding battle is a huge part. And it went to Toledo's way in this game, and they won the game as well. So a big game, and this is interesting. Toledo has now won 11 of the last 14 meetings against Akron. So great news here. The men's basketball team looking good here at 9-2. Their next game, they play at Eastern Michigan. That'll be on Saturday evening. Eastern Michigan is 6-18, 3-8 in the MAC. So we're going to look a little bit here at the remaining schedules for Toledo, Akron, and Kent State. But before I do that, there is one other interesting fun fact that I found. Toledo is now 41-9 in their last 50 conference games. This dates back to the beginning of the 2020-21 season. 41-9 in conference. The MAC has good basketball. They play good basketball, and that's a great record, 41-9. And the Rockets have won the last 2 regular season titles. And they're tied for first place, trying to make it 3 in a row. So great opportunity here. And, you can understand why they're 41-9 in their last 50 games in conference. So let's look at the remaining schedule now. There are 7 games left in conference with these 3 teams at 9-2. Like I said, they definitely seem to be the best teams in the MAC, 3-headed monster in the MAC this year. So Toledo remaining schedule is at Eastern Michigan, then home against Miami. Then they play at their main rivals, Bowling Green. They did beat Bowling Green in Toledo already, and it's definitely a game they should win, but it's their rival and it's at Bowling Green. So that'll be an interesting game. Then they're going to play Akron again, this time at Savage Arena in Toledo. Then they host Buffalo, who they have already played and beaten in Buffalo. And then they finish out at Central Michigan and at Ball State. Now, Ball State's not a bad team either, so it's definitely a team you have to look for. And playing on the road at the end of the regular season, that'll be an interesting game. So then let's look at the remaining schedule for Akron. They are at Ohio, at Eastern Michigan, then they host Buffalo, then at Toledo, home against Western Michigan, home against Ball State, and then at Kent State to end the season. And that's going to be some game. 2 of the 3 teams tied for first place right now, playing in the final game of the regular season. Could very well have a lot of impact in seeding going into the MAC tournament. And when you look at Kent State's remaining schedule, at Buffalo, at Western Michigan, home against Eastern Michigan, at Ball State, at Bowling Green, and then home against Ohio, and of course, home against Akron to end the season. So I think, in terms of who's going to be the number 1 seed, the number 2 seed, the number 3 seed, the top 3 seeds in the MAC look like they're pretty much a lock to Toledo, Akron, and Kent State. But who's going to be that top seed is probably going to come down to that last set of regular season games. Toledo plays at Ball State, and then Akron plays at Kent State. Um, it'll be interesting to see. And really, the main thing is, can you get the number one seed? If you're the number two or the number three, it's probably not that much of a difference. You're still going to go into a semifinal game, most likely, if you win in the tournament, playing against the other team that's, you're the other number two or number three seed. And then if you win, you're most likely have to play whoever the number one seed is. So I have said before that I think Kent State is probably going to win the MAC this year. I still think that that is the case, even though they lost at Akron the other day. Um, they're undefeated at home this year, not just in conference, but altogether out of conference as well. And playing on the road is a pretty difficult task. When you get to the MAC tournament, it's a neutral court. For Kent State and Akron, it's both fairly close. Being in Cleveland, it's very close to where their schools are, so they'll have a lot of fans there. So I think for Kent State, that neutral court may be the difference, which is going to put them over the edge. I'd love to see Toledo win the MAC tournament, but I think that Kent State is still that team to beat. Doesn't mean that Toledo can't do it. You've seen what they did here, winning at Akron. They've won 8 in a row. They're red hot right now, and hopefully they can stay red hot through down the stretch here in the regular season into the MAC tournament. But it'll be interesting to see who gets that number one seed, maybe gives them a little bit of an edge, because they'll be most likely taking on a number 4 seed in the semifinals and not having to play one of the other two teams between Akron, Kent State, and Toledo. So that'll give an advantage to that team. But either way, Toledo knows that they're going to have to get through either Akron or Kent State or both in the MAC tournament to win the MAC tournament and get the bid into the NCAA tournament. So it's going to be interesting to see. And 7 games left in the regular season. Toledo, like I said, has been hot, winning 8 in a row. And let's see if they can continue to stay hot. That's going to be a key, I think, is sometimes you see teams and they seem to hit their stride a little early and then they fade a little bit. And for Toledo, they've been somewhat inconsistent throughout the season, and now they've hit their stride. So let's see if they can continue on that stride through the end of the regular season and into the MAC tournament. All right. So we've talked about men's basketball. Let's talk a little bit about women's basketball. This just can be a quick update here. Excuse me. But the women's basketball team is playing very well as well. They are 17-4 overall now, 8-2 in the MAC. They have won 5 straight heading into a game against Buffalo tonight. And they're just behind Ball State and Bowling Green in the conference standings. They are both 9-1, Ball State and Bowling Green. So Toledo just a game behind them. When you look at Toledo's remaining schedule, after Buffalo tonight, they play at Miami, at Western Michigan, home against Eastern Michigan, at Akron, at Ball State, at Kent State, at home against Kent State, and then home again against Bowling Green. That last 3 to 4 games is going to be a very tough stretch for the women's basketball team. Akron's a solid team. Ball State, of course, good team. They're 9-1 in the conference. And then you got Kent State, who is also a solid team. And then Bowling Green, who's 9-1 in the conference. So that's going to really be big on their seeding going into the MAC tournament, right? Those last 3 to 4 games. And where will they fit? Again, they're probably a team that should be in the top 3 in seeding. Maybe they could possibly slip to 4 because they have a tough ending of the season there. But they could also win out and end up as the number 1 seed. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think that you're going to see definitely in a top 3 seed. That would be my guess. Ball State and Bowling Green are tough teams, and they play at Ball State. They do play at home against Bowling Green. It's their rival. They played them fairly tough through most of the game at Bowling Green, but Bowling Green won that game. And, playing at home, it's going to be a huge crowd. Last game of the regular season. I think that's a game that Toledo can definitely win. And probably, I'm going to say that they will win. Um, Bowling Green's a great team, though. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But that's going to be a key game. And if they can beat Akron and Kent State, um, it's going to come down to what happens a couple games before that game against Bowling Green when they play at Ball State. So, as we're getting down the end of the season here, both men's and women's are in the hunt for MAC regular season titles. The men's team tied for first place with two other teams, the women's team just a game behind two other teams. So you look at both men's and women's basketball in the MAC, you have like a top three that seem to be head over heels better than the rest. And then a few teams just below them that are good, but not quite up to their level of play. And that's what you see on both sides with men's and women's basketball. And, it's good to see Toledo is up there in both men's and women's basketball as considered one of the top three teams. So that's kind of the update here today. Just a quick update to talk about basketball today. There has been more talk and the rumors out there about Jason Candle. Nothing has come out yet at this point, but there is talk that he has been verbally offered the position of offensive coordinator at Miami Hurricanes. Last year, he was offered that position as well, and he turned it down. So we'll have to see what happens this year, if he accepts the offer or if he turns it down this year. And of course, there's still the possibility of the Notre Dame offensive coordinator position that he has been rumored to be a candidate for. So we'll see over the next couple of days if anything new develops there. And in the meantime, just go ahead and, leave any comments or anything talking about Jason Cando or the basketball team or the football team. We're not that far away really from spring football. It's February. So, month and a half or so, I guess, away from spring football. We're getting close to that. And pretty soon we should probably start talking about some of the positions for football heading into the spring, some of the position battles and stuff like that. So we'll probably start getting into that here too in the coming weeks. So thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.